If you ask me, like, hey, Marnix, what do you attribute your success to so far as a game developer? I would probably point you towards a video from Masahiro Sakurai, the guy who made like Kirby and then also the Super Smash Bros. Series. He has like a game development YouTube channel that unfortunately has ended at this point, but there's a video that he made, I'll link it somewhere, of like, treat yourself like a professional. And that video has been one that has had the most impact on me and how I approach game development as well. Where, you know, he talks about even if you aren't a professional game developer yet, you should treat yourself like one if you want to become one. Doesn't mean that you need to wear a suit. I mean, I'm not wearing a suit right now either. But even if you are just doing this kind of as a hobby, if you have the plan of taking it pro, as in like full time at a point in the future, you should act like a professional as well. And that is something that for the past, like, I think 2.5 years since I saw this video, I asked myself that as well of like, hey, what can we do here to be more professional? And I think some of these things have genuinely helped me a lot and other people in our audience once I like tell them and I show them that video. So I want to give you my own version of that video, or like my own things of what it means and what it takes to be a pro game developer in order to manifest becoming a professional game developer. And I think the first like super important thing that he mentioned in the video, I'm not going to just rehash his video, don't worry, is understanding that you need to separate executing from inspiration. And with execute, it means working on your game, where the amateur game developer will work on his game when he feels like it. The pro game developer will work on his game whether he feels like it or not, because he just trusts in his prior judgment of, I need to make this game, it's gonna be a good game, and even if I don't feel like it now, it's better to do smaller amounts of consistent development, but like 2 hours a day or whatever, than it is to not do anything for 2 weeks and then have one Saturday where you hate your life because you haven't worked on your game for 2 weeks and you try to cram like a 14-hour coding day into it. And then once again, you get burned out and you're not going to work on the game for another 2 weeks. Where that is kind of what being a pro means. A professional is someone who shows up and does the work as if it's like your job, basically. Regardless of whether you hate your job or not, at some point you have to show up and execute. And maybe it won't be at like 100% peak efficiency, but it's still going to be at 80% or whatever. And you need to hit that 80% point as well. You understand that, hey, if I want to do this in the long term, I need to work through the days that I also don't like it. Because, you know, it's not like you're crying and kicking your feet most likely. It's like, let's be honest, you're making games. Hello, you're sitting on a comfy chair most of the time. You're writing some code or you're doing some level design. I think there are worse things to do in life. So even if you feel like, oh, I don't really feel like it, I think you should still just discipline yourself almost to be able to keep doing it regardless. Kind of the something that I really like, and that for me once again was a very important like statement, is kind of like do the hard work, especially if you don't feel like it, because it's easy to work on your game when it's like, oh, it's all nice, it's all good, you're like in that prototyping stage most often, like you're a few weeks into development at most, and it's like you're very hype, everything is going well, you haven't hit any major roadblocks. But the difference between the amateur and the pro is that once the developer in both cases hits a roadblock, or it's like, oh, this kind of sucks, this level design is too much, or I didn't expect it to be like this, the amateur will just like stop working on the game and it will never get finished, and he just wasted a month prototyping. Whereas the pro is like, hey, this sucks, let me make a plan and let's stick to the plan for the next 3 weeks and let's just go through the slog, because we know that the game is going to be better at the end of it. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, this is driven by me and spite. I don't know if spite is the wrong term, but like the thing that I dislike the most about the game dev industry is how unreliable everyone is. This might be a stupid thing, but coming from corporate life before here, usually you could trust people, as in you ask them to do something. It's like, hey, can you get me these reports by Friday or whatever? Boring generic as example. You would generally have like a 95% confidence that, hey, yeah, I'm gonna get this shit. I don't know what's wrong with game developers. They have zero fucking dependability. It's the biggest problem, I think, especially when you're trying to work with other people, because often if you're working with composers or artists or whatever, most of the time they just disappear. Or if there are deadlines that are going to be missed, they let you know after the deadline has already passed. And my question to you, or like my demand from you, is if you want to treat yourself like a pro, get rid of this habit. Become hyper reliable. I mean, hyper reliable is maybe a bit of a crazy thing, but like if you say you're going to do something, do it. And put pride in the fact that you are able to do it. It's like dumb stuff. But this is the problem. I was like working with an artist once, and you know, they missed their deadline. Surprise. I kind of calculate like, oh, the deadline is going to be missed. Like they're like, oh, it's going to take 10 days. And I'm like, yeah, no fucking shot. It's going to take 10 days. But okay, I calculated in like 2 weeks, a little bit more. And then after like 10 days, I'm like, hey, buddy, what's going on? And then you get an answer 3 days later. I was like, hey, I'm taking kind of like a mental health break. And they're playing Minecraft 12 hours a day because you can see it in like the Discord status. And I'm like, brother, what the fuck are we doing here? I cannot work like a pro if you don't treat yourself like a pro as well. So this is something that one, keep in mind that other people may not be as professional as you and they don't put themselves to the higher standard. But two, please put yourself to the higher standard. If you put yourself to a higher standard, everything else will be lifted up by that as well. I feel like, you know, this is me glazing myself maybe. I think I have a pretty high standard. I think that lifts up the rest of the team as well because they know that if they need something, Thomas or William, they can rely on me to actually get that shit done. And I think that is so important. And it's not just other people, but it's also you and yourself. You're like, hey, if I can do something by this date, either you know early in advance that, hey, actually, this may have been overly optimistic. Here's the new plan, but you can communicate it in advance, or you can actually just fucking hit that deadline. Those are the two things that I think you need to be able to do. And it's something that I don't know what the real thing is here. It's just stop lying to yourself. It's just accept that it's easier to say like, hey, I'm not hitting this a week before the deadline is over than just trying to ghost somebody, because you are actively making the game dev landscape a worse place then. If you are just like ghosting people, ignoring people. If you're a capsule artist and you're watching this, the most simple, stupid thing you can do is just be predictable. We had a $700 deal for like capsule art for MO98 fall through for the artist because they suddenly just disappeared for 5 days. And then they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't respond to you. I was busy. And it's like, okay, well, we don't need this deal anymore because we already missed our first deadlines. So please do better. I don't know what else to say here. Something that kind of ties into this of like, I'm going to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. Ties into scope as well. Your scope is something that also, I think to a certain degree, you have to commit on relatively early on. And I know this may sound hard because how can you commit on a scope if you don't know the full game yet? But I see a lot of developers and they treat their scope or their game design document as a living document, as in they just keep appending to it. They just keep adding new mechanics, new features, new levels, new everything, but they never subtract. And they don't really see like the timing they say in their game design document as like, hey, this is how it's gonna be. We're going to work for 6 months on this project and then we're gonna ship it. They say starting like, hey, this is a 6-month dev cycle period. And then they keep adding more and more and more stuff, but they never stop and take a look like, hey, does this actually even make sense to make this in 6 months anymore? Because I keep adding so much stuff now. Can I even reasonably finish this in a year? Something needs to give at the end of the day. And I think it is better for you, if you're trying to go with this as a full-time occupation, to prioritize a smaller, cohesive game with less mechanics, but the mechanics make sense, than trying to make, you know, the standard of the open world RPG that has 50 different mechanics, but all of them are half-baked, half-implemented, buggy, and they don't really tie into each other. Just keep it lean, keep it small, focus on what was the original vision and how do we stick to that vision without bloating up scope. If something doesn't make sense and isn't fun, yes, you want to find a different mechanic, but replace the old one and make sure to shrink your stuff so that it actually does make sense. Can I do this in the certain time period? There's a saying we have in our studio, everything is possible in software land, like everything is possible in the world of software. But is one single mechanic or one single feature for your game really worth an additional 3 months of dev time? Probably not, especially once you start running the numbers on that of like, hey, assuming I pay myself out or assuming that I have an opportunity cost of like 3 months, does it really make sense to implement like this kind of like a side system that is kind of needlessly detailed and convoluted because I thought it was a cool idea? Or do I focus on something else in my game? Do I focus on making the level design? Do I focus on making the mechanics that I already have better, or just scaling down the scope and being like, hey, this is cool, but we're not going to do this, so that you can hit your deadlines? Because once again, hitting your deadlines is, I think, the most important thing you can do here. If you do need to like cut features for your game because you're like, hey, we're not hitting that deadline anymore, that usually doesn't mean that you're just bad and like, oh, I can't work hard enough. I think it's actually good because it means that you have the self-confidence in yourself to be like, hey, I want to do this as a business. I'm going to treat this as business. And I'm going to tell myself that, hey, I am business savvy enough basically to see that spending another 2 months on this game may not be the return on investment that I'm looking for. It's the 80-20 principle, but like even more like the 90-10 principle is, I guess, the next version of like, you get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort, and the remaining 20% takes like 80% of the time. And ask yourself, like, do we really need to spend 4 times as much time on a game to get marginal better results? Probably not. Yes, certain features might sound cool, but they aren't really needed. Now, I want to give a quick shout out to myself here. If you are dealing with a project that kind of has like miserable scope, or you're kind of not sure like, hey, is this even a good idea? Yes or no? There's a link down below where you can work together with me, where you send me your build, and I'm gonna send you like a whole video of like me playing it, giving you my live thoughts going into it. And then we hop on a call after and it's like, hey, is this a good idea? If so, okay, how do we take this the next step? How do we market this? How do we really wrap this up nicely? Is it like a cool idea but not really working? How do we pivot? Or, hey, do we just have to cancel this? Having someone else, an external opinion, can often be something a lot of developers do lack. And I think I have a pretty good like earnest opinion if you ask me. There's a link for that down below. And then I want to help you just making sure that you can actually ship those games, because I want you guys to be pros as well. Now, if you're a pro, something else that you should be doing is like playtesting, or at least having a demo for your game so that people can play the game before the full game is out yet. And one thing you're going to get here is a lot of feedback. And I think something that when we started, we didn't have this pro skill, and it definitely had some issues for us, is understanding when to listen to player feedback, but also, even more importantly, understanding what to ignore. We get a lot of feedback on our games, either from you guys, our developers, or also from our players. And some of it is like good, and it's like actual like, you know, bug reports of like, oh, this thing shouldn't happen. There's a missing collider here. Those I would always listen to. But it gets more tricky when it comes to game design and your vision of the game versus what the player wants. I was reading this review for MO98 earlier, and it's a whole thing. And this is kind of the quintessential know when to listen and know what to ignore, where it's like, hey, what were you expecting? And this guy talks about MO98, which is our incremental game, of like, hey, building your entire studio, working, hiring better, like kind of expanding and making like stuff and all of that, and making it a full-on game dev tycoon. And whilst I appreciate this guy a lot for like having actually written out all of this, this is unfortunately advice that I am going to 100% categorically ignore, because this is not the game that this is designed to make. At some point, you need to accept also that, hey, if you listen to everybody and everybody's different designs, you're not making a game for yourself anymore. You're making a game for nobody. Because, yeah, sure, that one person may want this game to be more like a game dev tycoon, but someone else actually likes the current, like, very non-game dev tycoon thing. If you then try to match all of these different mechanics in and like, oh, this feedback and this feedback and this feedback, you get this game that you as a developer don't feel attached to anymore, because it's not the game you wanted to make, and you're making a game that nobody else wants either, because it's like only one person wants that game, and you're kind of taking all these things that one person wants, and you're assuming that, hey, person A wants this, person B wants this. If I get both of these things, that means that both of them would like it, right? A and B. Whilst in reality, probably neither of them will like it. So I think that is something that we had to grow as well, especially when we were in the earlier stages of our game dev career and we had this YouTube channel. We got like other game developers giving us feedback. And on the surface, it sounds like good. But then when you go deeper and you're actually implementing them, you realize this is not the game I want to make. And I think that is important. You need to still want to make the game. There's a difference between, oh, I don't feel like working on my game today, versus I'm working on the shell of a game that I love the vision of, but that just doesn't come together anymore because it has been changed so many times. The game design has been changed so many times. Sometimes it's better to say, fuck this shit, fuck all of you, I'm gonna make the game that I want to make. So don't treat every single piece of feedback as like, hey, this needs to be implemented now. Just have like a general idea of like, hey, what are the people actually complaining about? Because this is not the first time also someone is like asking for like this to be more like a game dev tycoon style game, but group it in those bigger categories. Not just, hey, one person says this is a problem, so I'm immediately implementing it. No, first you're gonna acknowledge it of like, hey, yeah, I can understand, you know, this might be something you different expected, and then figure out, okay, what is this person actually looking for? People are really good at coming up with problems, but their solutions are generally not good. Their feedback is very good to identify like, hey, maybe there's a bigger problem. People expected a management game, instead of me trying to then make the game more of a management game, let me see if I can rework the visual presentation or, for example, the store page to make sure that people understand that, hey, this actually isn't a management game because I don't want to make a management game. So regardless of the feedback that this guy's giving me, I'm not implementing that because it is not what I want. And if you're forcing me to work on a game that I don't want, the game design is going to suffer even more. And then the last thing, and this is something that if you've been watching us for the last half year or something, you will know we've had good and bad periods with, is knowing when to quit. I think this is the hardest thing, but is also probably the divider between amateur hour and like, welcome to the big leagues, I can respect you now, is understanding when a game just isn't it. I recently ran this form for like people who are participating in the June 2026 Next Fest, and I got 96 answers so far. And there was this one stat that I think is really dire. Don't worry about the engine split. Good bros keep taking L's. I mean, it's pretty okay. But like total games that I got submitted is like 94. And out of those 94, 34 games are entering the Steam Next Fest with sub 200 wish lists. That's a very, very low amount. And I would hazard a guess, and I would say that more than half of those games participating in the Steam Next Fest with under 200 wish lists probably should have quit earlier. Because if you're joining the Steam Next Fest, it means that either you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how to market your game, in which case head down below and subscribe because I have a video coming out about that really soon, or you're simply working on a game, if you have done the marketing beats correctly, that is unappealing. It's a game that people don't want. And once again, we're pros here. We're not just making the game for only ourselves. We're treating ourselves to that higher standard, and we're making games as a professional game developer would. In which case you want other people to play your game. Because I think there is a definite over-romanticization, yeah, I think that's an English word, of like, oh, I never quit, I spent 7 years on this game and I still pushed through, I still released it, and it's like, yes, cool, but if you ever wanted to make money from this, it's a stupid idea to do that. If you had to suddenly like figure out, I think that was one good thing that our studio has, is I'm not solo, I'm paying other people's wages. And it's like, okay, if I'm working on a project and I see that I still need to pay the other developer another 6 months for working on this game, do I really think that's worth it? Or do I get honest with myself and am I like, hey, actually, this may not be the game for us? And, you know, you can take this too far. We also took it too far at a certain point where every single project we started, we ended up canceling in a pretty rapid succession, I would say. But sticking to a dead, unmarketable game that has like one wishlist a week doesn't mean that like, hey, I'm a strong game developer, I never give up. No, you should give up and you should know when to give up. Because a lot of the time, it's also like you don't understand your strengths, your weaknesses. If you're not a good 3D artist, you're just a programmer, but you're making a game that's super visually intensive. You are not hitting the bar to participate on Steam. You are not hitting the quality level that is required. And it's fine. I respect you more for than being like, hey, actually, this game was kind of a dumb idea. What were we thinking? Trying to make like a 3D multiplayer maid cafe simulator game, for example, like looking back and be like, hey, actually 2D games with lots of like more like UI and like numbers make a lot more sense for us as a studio. So let's double down on that and let's, you know, filter out certain genres that we just know at this point we aren't really good at. So I'm gonna be honest, if you're working on a game and you come to me, because I get these people in like our stream chat as well, of like, hey, can you review my store page? It's kind of a doomed game. It's like, why are you still working on it? Releasing the game on Steam itself doesn't mean anything. Releasing a game that then gets one review, cool, you're still an amateur game developer because you don't treat it like you're a professional. Putting stuff on Steam, in my opinion, doesn't mean anything because it's just $100. I can put some shitty Unity template on Steam for $100 tomorrow. Well, it takes 2 weeks technically to go through the entire process, but it's not hard. It shouldn't be celebrated to release something. It should be celebrated to release something good. And as long as you cannot release something good, don't work on the stuff that isn't good. Or realize that, hey, this is really too bad. Like, you know, your games will get better inevitably, but don't put bad games out there. It's my best thing. And when a game is kind of, you know, it has all the telltale signs of this game is kind of doomed, then don't keep working on it. Once again, I have to plug this because it's too good of a plug. Like, head to the link down below. If you feel like, hey, I might be at a game that is kind of doomed, link down below to work together with me to see, is this actually doomed? How do we save this? Or are you actually sitting on a gold mine and how do we go forward with this? But I think that is something that I hope you get better at as well. Knowing when to say no, but then also if you do say no to a game, making sure that the next game you work on learns from those mistakes, like why did you cancel this game, and works around that. Don't make another art-heavy game as like your next project immediately. Understand that as well, or otherwise the cancellation is for nothing. But move on to the next game and know that the next game will be better. So that's all I had to say. I hope these were some pro tips. If you have anything else that you think I missed in this video, if you see that, hey, I feel like a pro game developer myself as well, leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, if you're new here, we're game developers and we're on the road to build $1 million game studio. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to head down below and subscribe. That's all I had to say. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.